Hi, Wendy-Lynn. How are you?
I am well.
It's nice to see you again in person.
It's
I
good to see
mean,
you. You've
in
got
person.
like the COVID beard going
I
on.
have the beard, I have the shaved head, I have the whole look going. You look well.
I'm doing okay.
You have the glow about you that only a liberal on the day of an election being won by the president could bestow upon you.
It is kind of nice to know that there's going to be an adult in the White House again.
Do you know John Mulaney? Have you seen his stand-up?
No.
He's a stand-up comedian. Anyway, he has a bit about how like on Trump where he talked about like there's a horse loose in the hospital. And it's like he would never talk about Trump, and when people would ever would say anything to him, he'd be like, "It's a horse in a hospital. What do you expect?" Anyway, so he posted like a tweet today saying like, "It's official. The horse is now out of the hospital."
Well, not quite. The horse and his
Well, yes.
henchman, Bill Barr, still can do damage
Yes.
between now and the 21st of
Yeah,
January.
that's right. But enough politics. We'll be talking about politics for days and days. I was assuming that you are probably going to talk about skiing. Is that true, or is there something else you want to talk about?
You're the one who has the questions. I wasn't quite sure what you wanted to talk
No,
about.
it's totally up to you. So that's the thing. The premise of this whole project is the other person gets to have a conversation about whatever topic that they're really excited about. You know, the thing is, when you're really excited about something, your friends and your family get sick and tired of you hearing talking about that thing, and you never really like. It's not often you get to have that conversation with people who already don't know about it. So you already talked to about that thing. So consider me somebody who's an eager listener who would love to learn about the thing that you're really excited about, whatever it is.
Oh, I have with skiing. I have an interesting little dynamic. I have two friends, and we've had a chat, text chat going on for close to 4.5 years now.
Wow.
One of the guys, his wife absolutely loves it. I caught up with him in Montana, like February. It was just before the lockdown.
Okay.
I found out that like it's now infamous. He tells his other friends about it. His wife thinks it's the funniest thing ever, and we just like we go on and on. We might not talk. We talk about other things, but 90% of our conversation is all about skiing.
When did you get into skiing?
My sister went to the University of Colorado.
Okay.
And I went to visit her, and there were ski slopes, and I was like, I'm going to try this new sport thing, um,
Okay.
and I just loved it. And then I gave it up because it's expensive, and it was
Okay.
in triathlons, and both triathlons and skiing can be really rough on your knees. They,
Yeah, of course.
they're also both super expensive sports.
How are triathlons expensive?
Well, for example, signing up for the Ironman about 8 or 10 years ago was approximately $800. I'm sure it's like 1,200 by now. So just then you have to get a bike, and the bike is the most expensive part. So you
Okay.
want a competitive bike, which means you have to have wheels. You get flat.
I thought all bikes need wheels.
Oh, but I when I went to just before Lake Placid, so I was dirt poor when I did Lake Placid. I mean,
Okay.
super poor. I took it in the bike shop. He's like, you need ball bearings. I'm like, I can't afford new wheels. This is what I'm trying. He's like, but you can go so much faster. I'm like, don't have the money for it. Can't afford it. We're gonna work with this. And so like people who had more money went faster than me because they had better equipment. And
Oh
I
man.
to do it.
Okay, that sucks. So the sport is definitely it's not inclusive.
Oh no, neither sport is inclusive because they're expensive. You need gear. The thing is, you need gear for both. You have to pay to enter the events. You have
Yeah.
to travel to the events. I mean, there's only
Oh
so many
yeah.
triathlons you can do in your local area.
Okay.
So you would be if you were trying to do triathlons, your season sort of starts in the spring. It could go to the early fall, but most of
Okay.
it will happen in the summer. So you're traveling to these places. It either costs a plane ticket. If it's a plane flight, you might have to box your bike up in order to ship it, or you have to drive a long
Oh yeah.
way. Running, yeah, you need a pair of sneakers.
Right.
Swimming, you need to be able to use a pool to train. So either you have to live by a lake where you can train all the time, or you have to pay for pool time. Pool time
Okay.
is expensive. When I was in New York, I paid $150 a month. Maybe it was closer to 200 or 210 a month to be part of a swim team so that I could
Okay,
access to a pool. And I could only go during certain hours when we had the pool reserved. And so
got it.
I would have to get up at 5 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning to be there for swim practice in the morning, or
Okay.
a couple days a week I could do it at night.
That's crazy. I mean, I've always known that skiing is definitely like, because the from movies, right? The preppy kids are always going skiing and whatnot. But triathlons, I didn't think. But now that you explain it, it definitely makes sense that they're not inclusive either.
Yeah, I mean, running can be inclusive. But yeah, no, swimming is an expensive sport. You have to be able to afford to get into the pool.
Yeah.
There are some programs, like, so the swim team I belong to in New York City, they created, some of the more senior people of the club created something called Trident. And what they did
Okay.
was they tried to help, a lot of the what we would call an underrepresented population, so the
Okay.
poor populations in the city, they actually created a program where they got them pool time, they coached them, helped them on their team, as well as I think if they were on any high school teams or whatever, coached.
Okay.
But with the coaching came tutoring, and so they
Okay.
tried to help those students who were first life skilled to learn how to swim. Some of them were super competitive once they learned how to swim. They realized it was a sport they could compete on. But
Hmm.
most importantly, the education aspect was what mattered most to the coaches, is that
Okay.
they tutored them. They not just coached them, but they made sure that they got extra help on their homework.
Why did you stop doing triathlons?
Once and done. It's expensive. I wasn't super obsessed. It's exhausting.
Can you? Okay, so assume that I know it's running, swimming, and biking. How much of each?
So it depends on the triathlon. So you can do,
Oh, it's not like a marathon. It's not standard.
so well, it depends on what it is. So there's a sprint. So a sprint
Okay.
distance is like a half mile. I don't even remember the distance. It was a super small swim. For me,
Okay.
swimming was my strength. I was super, that was my strongest of the legs, was swimming.
Okay.
Most triathletes are horrible swimmers and they're great bikers and medium runners. Occasionally you get strong runners and medium bikers, but you rarely get people where swim is their sport. That was,
Okay.
I would
Nice.
I would finish towards the end of my age group, but I finished in the top 10 of my age group in swimming. I didn't learn how to swim until I was in my 20s, 30s.
Oh, I still don't know how to swim.
Oh, you should. I have a pool now right down the street here. Like
Okay.
literally I get up in the morning and now I get to swim 4 or 5 days a week now.
Oh, that's great.
It's just relaxing because you get in there, there's
Yeah.
no noise. You can be in the lane with other people and they can help you swim faster. But I get so much thinking done because
Really.
you just, it's like this, you get into a rhythm and you can, yes, Friday, I get water in my ear a lot.
Okay.
So I stopped doing flip terms, and then Friday I was like, fuck it. And like this woman's like, wow, just watching you. I was like, I'm not that good at the swim. She's like, yeah. It was because I was just like going as fast as I could, just bouncing off the
Okay.
wall. It was just like this. If I get frustrated, it's just nice. It's just relaxing. You're in the water. It's the impact on your body is less,
Hmm.
so you can
Yeah,
push harder
of
when you're
course.
on land.
So it's
So,
a half a mile of swimming, you said?
well, it depends. So I'd have to look it up. I can't remember the swimming distance, but it's super short. Then there's like, what is the? I'd have to look it up. It's easier to go from the largest one. So the
Okay.
big one, the Ironman um, is it 2.5 miles swim? I'd have to look that up. Damn, I've forgotten it all. It would be a 112 miles on the bike
What?
and then a full marathon. So then,
What? All
yeah,
three in a
all
row
in a throw.
in a day?
Yes, in a day.
What? But wait, the guy in ancient Greece or whatever who first did the first marathon, like he died, like at the end of the marathon,
Yeah,
right? That's the story. But
yeah.
then you're like, at the end of the marathon, you're telling him you have to swim and bike again.
No, no, no. Then the marathon's the last thing. So you swim,
Ah,
you get out, you strip your wetsuit off, you put your biking gear on, you get on the
okay.
bike, and you bike 112 miles. typically typically they're fairly hilly, the places they pick to do these. And then you get off the bike, take off your bike shoe, throw on your sneakers, and then you run a marathon.
But that's so much.
It is.
How do you even begin to train for that?
There was a training group called that I worked with called what was it? NYC Tri? Well, no, what do we call? Oh my God, I haven't done that.
That's insane, dude. Look, I'm still not over the fact that how crazy of a thing that is.
Well, I joined a tri group to train for it because it's hard to do on your own. And they used to get. I was swimming before I did the triathlons. I
Right.
just absolutely like swimming was my thing. It was my sport. And the coaches just get frustrated because I never showed up at swim practice. I'm like, look, you don't need to worry about me with the swimming. I did the training just for the running and the biking, and I was
Okay.
always at the end of the bike, and I was always at the end of the run. Two of
Okay.
my closest friends in this world are from that. We
That's
all joined this
insane.
at Tri Group, and he was from South Africa. She's American, and she and I were about the same pace for running and biking.
Okay.
And he would go ahead, and then he'd come back to get her, and so I got to bring him back to get her, and then eventually, sometimes he'd come back to get me if she was in. And when I moved so they moved from New York to San Francisco, and they ended up in Berkeley.
Okay.
And I sat their rent controlled apartment for a year while I did that. And well, no, it was just like when you go through that intense experience, it's like you're friends for life because it's.
What was from the first time you ever had the thought that I am going to do a triathlon to like how long did it take to do one?
Well, I did mini ones right away. The small
Okay.
ones are really super easy. I mean, you get in the water, you're out by the time it's over. Then you get on the bike. Like, so if so, have you ever done a marathon? You've never done a marathon.
The longest I've ever run is like 7 or 8 kilometers, which is like 5 miles or something.
Well, I had been doing marathons for a long time. Well, I had been running for a long time. I can do a half marathon in my sleep. I can run for a couple of weeks, and like if you told me I had to run, I wouldn't win it. But I can do 13 miles, no big deal. I mean,
Your endurance is really up there.
it is and it isn't. I have something called, so this is interesting. So I have something called thalassemia minor.
Okay.
It is the Mediterranean version. I carry the traits for a Mediterranean version of sickle cell anemia.
No kidding. But shouldn't that make it harder for you?
Well, yes. So, but I didn't really pay much attention to it because I'd had it my entire life. I
Okay.
didn't know I had it until I was somewhere in my mid-20s.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't mean anything to me. Well, when you start to do triathlons, my coach did some research because I was struggling and he didn't understand why I was struggling. And it was frustrating him more than me because
Mm-hmm.
I'll finish eventually.
Right.
Like when I climbed Kili, my the guy leading us kept getting frustrated because I kept stopping. He's like, if you stop, you'll never finish. I'm like, no, if I stop, I'll still finish. There's I'll make it. I just break. But most people are not determined like I'm determined,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you go down, that's the end of it. And I'm like, no. So then when I did the triathlons and I wasn't getting better. My coach didn't understand because I was putting in the
Okay.
time. I was dedicated. I was clearly. And then when he realized I had thalassemia, he did this research and found out that Pete Samper actually has it too. And
Interesting.
he told me, he said, look, it's not good. You're not a good endurance athlete because my blood cells are smaller than yours.
Right.
My blood carries less oxygen.
Yep.
It's easier for me to do sprint activity than it is for me to do long distance. But
So that's
mentally, I'm a long distance kind of like, that's my mental.
got it.
I can handle it.
Got it.
But he's like, it was a challenge for him to coach me. And at one point, halfway through, he's like, maybe you should give up. I'm like, nah, it's like, it doesn't.
But that's ultimately what matters, right? Like if your brain is just willing to push your body that far, you will be able to do it, is the kind of deal I think it is. Because I've heard the stories from some long, like ultra long distance runners online, and they always talk about like, it's a mental game. It's a mental game.
Oh, it so is. I mean, so this group that I did the triathlon with,
Yeah.
I ended up the South African guy who I said became really good
Yeah,
friends.
yeah,
There's a race. It's called the Comrades, and
yeah.
it's in South Africa, and it goes from Durban to Pietermaritzburg in 1 year, and the next year it goes in the reverse direction. So one
Is
year,
that, I don't know how long that is. Is that really long?
it was a double marathon.
Okay, that's crazy.
Um, it was during the double marathon that I realized the Ironman is actually easier than a double marathon because
Huh.
you change it up
Okay.
and you're using different muscles, and you get to,
Okay.
like, when you're swimming, it's going to be, and you've at least got that lack of gravity on your body.
Mm-hmm.
So then the next is you get on the bike, and so you're pedaling, and so then you get off and you run. Like when I hit the end of the Ironman, I could run better than I could when I hit the end of the double marathon, because it was the year it went uphill,
Yeah.
which actually is easier than downhill, believe it or not. It's easier on your knees.
I believe that. I mean, when I run, I don't run a lot, not like you, but when I run, going downhill is always more uncomfortable and it's awkward.
There's more impact on your knees.
Yeah.
But so here's the way the Comrades race works. 1 year is uphill, 1 year is downhill.
Mm-hmm.
You sign up for it, you have to qualify. I don't remember if you have to qualify or not. I don't think we had to qualify. You just had to sign up in time. Um, you have to finish in 14 hours, or they
Okay.
do not acknowledge that you even started a race. Like in New York City, if you do the New York City Marathon, they have all the people
Okay.
who finished, and then they have DNF, and they at least list your name. Like if you're the last person to cross, they'll tell how many. Like they're people who are like crossing the next day. They let them.
Okay.
I made it with 15 minutes to spare.
Like, so you were running for like 13 hours and 45 minutes?
Yep. But you don't.
How
The
do
end.
you eat?
You
How
can't
do
run.
you, what do you, how do you do everything for like 13 hours?
Well, the thing is, that's about what it took me to do the the Ironman. My Ironman
Okay.
finish time and my Comrades finish time were pretty damn close to one another.
But do
Right?
you eat? How do you get food in you as you're doing that?
Um, you need less food than you think you'd need. You carry some of it. They give you little
Okay.
snacks along the way. You drink. You try and drink. Although I had a really hard time with Gatorade because it had too much fructose, whatever. And
Yeah.
when you need to consume what you train with, because when your body gets new sugars or new whatever, it does in it is stress capacity. It doesn't
Okay.
have to do with it, and it can create digestion problems.
Okay.
So it was kind of hard because the stuff in South Africa was South African as opposed to what you trained with, which was from
Right.
the US.
Of course.
So you carry a lot of what you get accustomed to. So there's goose, which is sort of the liquidy, sugary shit. Um,
Okay.
but I actually, unlike most people, like I consumed very little. I had I can remember when I was doing the marathon for the triathlon, my coach is like, you need just take a Coke. And he gave me the Coke, and the bubbles in the Coke made me sick for like the last half. I was like, it was my biggest regret was listening to the coach and taking the soda. But he was just trying to get me to get electrolytes in my system. And
Okay.
I had trained mostly on water. I didn't like syrupy, sugary shit.
Okay.
I mean, for the vast majority, actually for more than half of my life, I drank 6 to 8 Cokes a day.
No way.
Yeah.
But you're not, you know, you don't look like someone who drinks that much
Well, what
soda.
ended up happening was when I trained for my first marathon, I didn't want it anymore. I didn't need it anymore. But
Uh-huh.
what happened was when I was a kid, my father told me I couldn't have it,
Okay.
and my mother let me have it, and, and I never drank coffee. So I grew up in Virginia. When
Okay.
I went to school in Syracuse, New York, and I met another guy. He was from Virginia too, and he and I were the only ones. We didn't drink coffee. We drank soda. We drank Coke,
Okay.
and it
I mean,
was
I grew up on soda. I'm from Pakistan, and like we don't. I mean, people drink tea or soda, and I didn't like caffeine ever growing up, so I grew up on soda as well. But I mean, soda has caffeine as well. So these days, I just drink no caffeine, no sugar diet soda because I love the fizz so much. I really, really like. I can't get. I'm so addicted to the bubbles.
Soda's dream.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I maybe I should do that. I drink basically like 7 Up or Sprite, or what I really like these days is diet ginger ale. It's great because I love ginger.
Oh, I would rather do ginger ale with real sugar these days. Like I went through I've never been able to. My mother worked for Monsanto before I was
Okay.
born.
Okay.
She would not my entire childhood because she'd run the tests on the plastic bottles.
Yeah.
She wouldn't let us have diet soda.
Really? Oh well. I get them in the cans. Is that better?
No.
Well, everyone's gonna die one day.
That's certain. But yeah, no, I never drank diet soda because my mom was just like, no, I did the tests before you were born. No, you're not allowed.
um, so what is that the longest you've ever run? The two double marathon?
Yes, but again, once and done. I
Okay.
tried. So after the triathlon, I did the Ironman. I did 2 or 3 small triathlons, and that kind of petered out. And then I did comrades, and then I think I did 1 or 2 marathons. And I can remember I was at the New York City Marathon. We were getting ready at the start, and people start talking about how many they've done. I'm like, I don't know. I'd have to go home and look it up. I never ran a marathon again because it's like I didn't like. There was no point in it anymore. It was like if you've done so many, you can't count.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
no, I think you've done enough then. Is that when you switched to skiing then?
no. So what ended up happening was um, I had stopped doing that. I think like for 2 or 3 years, I didn't. I mean, I did my regular exercise. Once you do that kind of exercise, you can't not exercise.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm always kind of fit after
Yep.
that.
Yep.
But I ended up. I had been at a startup, and that was part of why I couldn't afford to like get the proper meals.
Sure.
And I went to Amazon, and I got to Amazon, and this is where the group chat thing comes from.
Okay. Okay.
Um, so what ended up happening? So there was this one guy, Tellini. He was obsessed with the weather, and he was constantly talking about skiing. And then I met
Okay.
other guy who worked in an office in Detroit, and he too was obsessed with skiing. And I had always thought when I had money again, I'd ski again.
Okay.
But before I even got to think about, all right, I'm going to be closer to mountains where I get to ski, I encountered these 2 people who shared my passion for it,
Okay.
but in very different ways. The one guy watched the weather and he liked to ski, but he didn't like to ski if the mountain was too tall because he had this thing with the altitude. And this other
Okay.
guy was like a natural, loved it. He was getting his kids, he was teaching his kids to ski. Um, and so I just learned to ski all over again. But when I went to go do it, they're like, no, 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 you don't buy skis. You have to rent them. Like you have to rent them to figure out what kind of skis you want. I'm like, what do you mean? What kind? And
Okay.
in the 10 years since, or and maybe it had even been 18, I can't remember how long it had been. It would have been over 15 years since I had skied.
Okay.
And skis were totally different. They had been sort of stick like. Now they're this whole parabola and like whether or not they're
I know
rocker.
nothing about skiing, by the way. I have never been skiing.
I love it. It's like this is
No, I'm
amazing
saying
down.
I'm not saying I'm against skiing. I'm just saying when you say these things, just remember that I have, when you say there used to be poles or parabolas, it's all news to me.
So imagine when they first started skiing, somebody took a piece of wood and put their foot on it and went down a hill.
Okay, that's what I still think of it as. Now what should I think of it as?
Well, in the last 20, 30 years, they got much more sophisticated and they figured out like if you make it fatter at the top and then
Yeah.
narrower in the middle and then fatter, then it's easier to turn. So you can
Okay.
have fun and not necessarily worry about, you don't have to be as skilled. You can go
Okay.
faster, you can float. Like the fatter they are, the more you can float on the snow. Like
Okay.
I don't even know half the technicals. I still don't even understand. Like I go in, it's for me, it's like I like the challenge, but I still can't go in the air. Like I like to go on super
Like
steep.
jumping?
Yeah, I get more than this much air between the ground and my skis, and I flip out. I just like it feels uncomfortable. But I love it. I love going fast down the hill. I take these classes, and like they'll go, "Oh, you're a woman. You should join the women's class." And then the women's class instructor's like, "You're way advanced. You want to in this class?" So I end up in these classes with men who are much more aggressive than I am,
Yeah.
but closer to my level than the women who
Okay.
are out to just kind of. And every once in a while, I'll run into a woman who's like, I had one class, and the woman and I were like perfectly paired. And the instructor had so much fun. He like gave us an extra hour because he could take on stuff, all kinds of stuff. And we were having fun. We were helping one another. We had the similar weaknesses, but different enough that when he gave, like, I could watch her do something and she was better at it than I was, and then she could watch me and I was better at certain smaller things.
Okay.
But we were basically the same level, and we had the same level of openness to trying new things.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were going down steep shit, and sometimes we'd fall. Like I'd fall one time and then be okay, and then she'd fall, and like, and so it was just like this really nice balance. But he could take us down stuff and not be worried, but we
Okay.
weren't aggressive, beat on. Like, I don't like being stereotypical, but we would often get men who had to prove their masculinity by
Sure,
the
sure.
speed at which they could go.
No
And
way.
so,
That never happens.
but I've taken something, like I took a class and I want to learn how to jump. Like I don't like being, when I was a kid, when I went to learn how to drive, my mom, thankfully at the time, had a stick shift, and she only had a stick shift because it was the cheapest part she could get at the time.
Okay.
But I always wanted to learn stick shift because I didn't ever want to be in a situation where I couldn't drive a car.
Right.
I didn't want to be stranded. I didn't want to be helpless.
Right.
And so I learned how to do that. I don't ever want to not. So I sort of that same mentality is
Okay.
when I learn how to ski. It's like, I don't want to not be able to go down a hill because I don't understand the technique.
Right. That makes sense.
So I literally had to start all over again. I tested out skis.
Okay.
I took lessons. I went to Whistler. Whistler taught me how to ski all over again. So it's sort
Okay.
of like I got a soft spot in my heart for Whistler.
Okay.
And for a couple years, I didn't take many lessons and I just did it. And I realized, oh shit, my form is getting sloppy. I'm less effective. I'm falling too much.
Mm-hmm.
Then I started taking classes. And so I try every other week or to try at minimum to take a class.
Even now?
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense. I mean, even professional athletes have coaches.
Yeah. And you get better. And the other thing is sometimes, even if it's just having an instructor go out with you and give you small tweaks. But every time I've worked with an instructor, almost every, they're like, I love working with you because you're coachable. I'm like, what do you mean I'm coachable? They're like, I can tell you something, you work at it and you get better. Like you hear what I'm saying and then you fix your form based on what I'm saying. They're like, most people that they try and coach in these ski schools don't.
Okay. Do a lot of people quit skiing?
Do a lot of people quit it?
Like when they try it, they're like, it's too hard. It's not for me.
I don't know enough people who give it. I know that I'm on the upper end of people who ski, even though I'm not, like, I can't go in the air and I'm not a freestyle expert, but people who do it for fun, women who do it for fun, I'm towards the top of people, like what people would do.
Got it.
So I don't know, like, I'm sure there's plenty of people who like, oh, go down the hill. They do 2 or 3 runs. You get me on a mountain and it's like when I was a kid, you got me in a pool, you couldn't get me out of the pool.
Right.
You get me on a mountain, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna do a couple of hours. There were years where, like, literally, which is why I'm not worried about the whole COVID stuff. COVID and the mountains, it's spread on the damn après ski and when you go in for lunch.
Yeah.
A thing of nuts.
Yeah.
I don't have to get off the mountain until they kick me off. Like literally, the number of times I've been the last chair up, I can't count the number of times they let me be the last chair up.
That's crazy. I mean, I also know that you actively go look for like fresh snow? So I have so many questions. I mean, we can talk about many different things. We can talk about like how there's different levels. Like I know there's like double black diamond or something, and it's supposed to be really hard, and I don't know any of the levels. And there's the whole weather aspect to it. Like, what do you want to talk about next?
Okay, so product manager.
Yeah.
One of the questions you will typically get, so they like to ask when you're interviewing for product roles, what's your favorite product?
Mm.
Luckily, last time I went through a rounds of interviews, it was during ski season.
Okay.
And so they said, so what's the first app you use in the morning? I'm like, Open Snow. Which was from an interview perspective was awesome because I wasn't going, I use my iPhone, my favorite app is like, there. So all of a sudden I got to tell a story.
Plus you have an advantage because they don't know the product.
Exactly. But they're like they could see me light up. It's Open Snow. What do you mean it's open? I wake up every morning and I look at the weather and I look at my favorite mountains. And so I try and plan, am I going to drive to Utah or am I going to go to Tahoe? Am I going to need to sleep in my car on the way up because the road's going to be bad? And I figure all this out by watching the weather.
Isn't that like, how do you, when you're like sleeping in the car and it's like snowing and it's like really cold outside, do you sometimes feel like, wow, like I really like skiing. This is pretty obsessive.
It's an adventure. I don't sleep.
I say that as someone who doesn't like the cold, I think, is the reason.
Well, the worst I think I've ever done is, okay, so I had enough money to get a hotel, but there's the whole planning thing. Like when you're they're called it's called powder chasing.
Yes. Okay.
I have a friend once who thought that meant cocaine.
I had that same exact thought when you just said it.
So powder chasing is chasing fluffy white, like light as powder snow.
What is the difference between that and like not that? Like when it gets compacted?
Yeah. So they often talk about in Sierra Nevadas in California, they call it Sierra cement. So when the snow falls and it's really close to 32 degrees, and so it's close to that melting point, it will be super, super heavy.
Okay.
When you get on your skis and you're on the snow, it can be hard to turn. It's heavy. You can get stuck.
Okay.
When it starts to get below 20 degrees, so we're talking 18, 19, anything below that, it gets lighter and fluffier. And when you jump off something, it's like, woo! It's like that we call it. It's like just so much. Like imagine that you were in a feather bed and you got to jump up and down. It's like soft, like fluffy, and you can have.
And you're not really cold, right? Like with all the stuff you're wearing, you're not, or are you cold?
It varies. So I think wind is a huge factor.
Okay.
What else is a fact? So like if it gets below 0, it starts to get cold. But if the wind chill factor is bad, it's even worse.
Okay.
The bad part is actually being on the ski lift. But once you actually get on the mountain, because you're moving all the time and you're a lot of work on your quads, which is what the most powerful part of your body, you come up. It's the getting up to the top that's cold. And then once you get there, and so long as the wind's not bad and the visibility is okay, it's good. I mean, it was Aspen, and the cloud cover was so bad. One of those, the ski patrol guys goes, "Yep, this is called skiing in a ping pong ball." And he was spot on. I climbed up. There's the Aspen Highlands. It's a famous area, and I was just like, "I'm here. I'm going to do it." You have to buy this if you don't have a proper backpack, you buy this big string that you then do in a convoluted way to put your skis on your back so you can hike on.
Okay.
I got halfway up and realized that there's a cat ski that'll take you at least a quarter of the way up. But I had to go all the way up, and then you get to the top, and I like watched the guy in front of me go down. I'm like, oh, I can go down here, and I'm slower than him, and then I lose him, and all of a sudden I am in white. Like imagine being in the middle of a cloud. I was in the middle of a cloud, And so I would do a little, and then I'd have to stop. And then I could hear people around me going, Marco, Polo, Marco. It was the only way I knew I wasn't dead yet. It
Was
was,
that scary or fun?
it was both. It was just like powdery snow. It was so fluffy, but I didn't know if I was going to hit a rock or not. And I didn't know if I was going to go over the edge because I literally could not see more than like a foot in front of me.
That's so scary though. Oh my God. You could fall off a cliff.
Yeah, you can go down a cliff. So in some ways, it would have been so much more fun if I could have seen it because I could have just done a straight shot.
Right.
In other ways, it was just this soft, fluffy, fresh snow. You talk about fresh tracks, means nobody else has gone down it, and you're the first one to go down it, and you get to feel
Right.
that fluffiness.
Yes. How so is it you've skied a lot now, right? So is it now that unless it's exactly fresh powder snow at 19 degrees, like you don't even like it anymore? Or you're like, I'm not picky, whatever I can get.
My friends tell me I'm a little picky. I don't like spring skiing. Spring skiing is super slushy.
Okay. That's a thing. Like for example, there's still snow when it's not snowing, so you snow like ski down that or what? What is spring skiing?
Spring skiing, and they joke that Squaw, which is going to be renamed, Valley in California is the spring skiing capital of the world, because they make a big deal about spring skiing because
Okay.
it's California. Skiing is
Okay,
California.
sure.
But the snow is heavier. So you talk about it's as you get closer to 32 degrees or warmer, it gets super slushy.
Hmm.
What happens with spring skiing is early in the morning it's still frozen because it freezes at night and then it warms up, and so there's a small window in spring skiing where it's slushy enough and you can have fun, and then it
Okay.
gets too slushy, but in the morning it's too icy, so
Okay.
it's only a small window. And I only think spring ski is fun if you're with friends, but powder skiing I could ski by myself forever in powder because it's just so much fun. It doesn't matter. Whereas the spring skiing it's less fun. You can't do challenging stuff. You can't. Jumping is dangerous. Like I have a friend whose daughter, it was a fracture, I think, in her foot or some or
Oh
no,
no.
she bruised her bone because she
Okay.
did a jump and she got caught in hooky spring snow. And it's just like spring ski, you can't have as much fun. It's not as safe because it's not as fluffy.
Okay. How many days a year are you on a mountain?
Well, this year, hopefully, the entire season, I'll do at least once an hour a day.
But
But
how long is the season?
well, with global warming or climate change, whichever term
Yeah.
you want to use, it's getting shorter and shorter.
Okay.
So this year, we won't have the season. I don't think will start till the last weekend of November, beginning of December.
Okay.
Used to be that it started in October, November,
Oh, whoa.
all
That's a
the way
big change.
to May. Yeah. Now what happens is it starts somewhere November, December, and it'll end somewhere April. Some places will stay open early May. But the heart of the season is January, February, March.
Okay.
But towards the end of March, most of the years, as of late, it starts to get to be hit or miss. But like COVID, fuck, like that weekend was the best all year for the Sierra Nevadas, and I was in Kirkwood, and they closed it down, and for like 3 or 4 days, we just saw this like mountain, and then you could watch. They were letting the ski patrol guys go up, and they got to come down on fresh snow. And I went, and it's called uphilling or skinning or backcountry stuff.
Okay.
Um, you have to have either a special kind of binding, or I bought off some guy. These sort of, what are they called? They're basically these platformy things that like when you go to climb up the hill, you need to be able to lift your ski up. But normal downhill skis lock your ski in.
Okay.
So you have to have two things. One, you have to be able to lift your foot when you're climbing. The other is you put they're sticky on one side and furry on the sort of furry on the other, mole hair. so that the skis will catch in the snow. And you
Ah,
climb straight up, or you go at angles, so you turn and then you get a turn again, and so you make your way up the mountain like this.
okay.
So it takes me about 2.5 hours to get to the top, and 5 minutes to come down.
That's insane.
But what ended up happening is very few people do that. I mean, there was a lot, relatively speaking, but like most people.
That's like basically being in, when you're in line at Disney World for like 2 hours and you take like a short ride, except the whole time you're hiking up a snowy mountain.
Yeah. But at first, I was super, super mad about COVID. I was like, "Damn it! This is my this." We would have had 3 weeks of the most beautiful. But what ended up happening was I got first tracks on mountains that I would never, ever, ever, because you literally have to get in line. Like, I'm sorry, I'm about to plug in my. You have to
No
get
worries.
in line hours before
Yeah.
in order to get to be the first couple people on the lift, and then it's like this rush. And I'm not that good. There are so many people who are so much, and they're much more aggressive, and they know the mountains better than I do, and so they know where to go. But with COVID, there were very few of us. I was staying right on the ski resort, so I'd get up in the morning, I'd hike up, I'd follow the tracks of other people, and I got to go down parts of the mountain, and I got to be the first one down them. That it never would have happened. Like there was one thing. What is it called? It's called Snake something. I want to say Gully,
Okay.
and it's this gully, and I got to be the first one going down it. So what you do is you go down it, and so it's between two humps
Okay.
of the mountain, and you go up the hill and you come down, and the force of going up and down propels you all the way down. And
Okay.
I was like, what the fuck? I want nobody tried it yet, because I mean there had at least been 30 people I would have thought up the mountain before, but
Okay.
I chose to go down that before I got to that, and it was just this. I was like screaming, so I got to go down two areas of the mountain that I love for the first time, being the first person. And outside of COVID, that'll never happen, because they would always race me to the top and they'd be the first one
Of
over.
course.
They have something called the wall. I hiked all the way up to the wall and went down it myself.
Is it, that sounds just like a cliff.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is the wind shears it, and
Yeah.
only a handful of spots where I was strong enough to come down, because it
Wow.
can like literally be a straight. And the other thing is you
Yeah.
have avalanche danger, and that was part of, like, I only got like 7 days out of 10 or 5 days out of 7, because what ended up happening is if you get heavy snow on top of light snow, it's an avalanche risk.
Oh, I didn't know that. And yeah, I didn't even think about avalanches this whole time. That's something that can totally happen, especially if you're looking for the fresh snow, right?
Yeah. So this year, in about a month, the 11th or so of December, I'm taking a class to learn all the Avi training. So, like if there's an avalanche, what do you do? How do you get out of it? What are the best practices when going backcountry?
There's all these little terms when someone's talking about something, they're part of the scene because they'll use like these little acronyms or throw stuff in. Like AVI training totally sounds like, okay, if you say that, you probably are somebody who skis or is in snow or on the mountains or something.
Avalanche training.
Yes, no, no, no. You should use the lingo because that definitely means that it's the scene, right? You're part of the scene.
Although I used to call it skinning, and I was like, technically they call it uphill. It's like, I have to put skins on my shoes to go up. It's skinning for me.
What are all the difficulty levels? The green, blue, black. Do you only do the hardest ones now?
Yeah, I get bored on most other things. Although I say that, our mutual friend James, I met
Yeah,
him in
yeah.
Aspen, and I went on one of the mountains. So James broke his knee
I Yes.
mountain biking.
That was
I
mountain biking.
I went to ski with him less than a year after he broke his knee and had all those pins and everything else, and we went down blacks.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he's good. He's really, really good. For the most part, I like to do blacks and double blacks. I'll do blues when
What
I'm
is
doing.
the scale? I'm sorry, what is the
Yeah,
scale?
sure. So every mountain is ever so slightly different.
Okay.
But green is easy. So if you go with someone who's never skied before and they're super nervous, first of all, they should always take a lesson and not from a friend. Learning to ski from a friend is the worst possible thing you can do. It will destroy your friendship and it's terrible for either one of your safeties. Because especially if you're an adult and
Okay.
parents teach kids, parents can go out with kids, parents can give them small tweaks, but
Yeah.
parents should put kids in ski school.
Okay. Okay. Point taken.
For all relationships involved. Because people get frustrated. Snowboarding and skiing. It's a hard thing to teach somebody you care about.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, so green. Think about if I look at a green, I'm like, oh God, I got to work to go down it. You look at a green, you're like, oh shit, how am I going
Really?
to control myself? Because you're
Okay.
new to it. Like if you're
Sure.
new to it, it's scary.
Okay.
So I can remember when I hadn't skied for 18 years, and then I went to go down to my first green. I was like, oh shit, I forgot how to ski. It didn't take long, but like
Okay.
that I remember it was Mount Baker. It
Okay.
was the first snowfall, and I drove to the first place that was open that had enough snow that I could go. And I walked in. I was like, I need to rent a pair of skis, and I don't have anything. Uh, and it was a blast. But I can remember I was like so scared of even the smallest. The
Okay.
blues are so blues are in the next level. So if you're just learning to ski, they'll feel really scary. If you know how to ski, they're good for practicing technique.
Okay.
Now they'll have sort of blue blacks. Some parts of the U.S. will call them blue blacks. So things are just a little bit steeper. Uh,
Okay.
Different mountains do different things. So black could mean super steep.
Mm-hmm.
Black could mean medium steep, but there might be trees and rocks and stuff.
Okay.
So if you're on something that's black, no matter what the mountain is, you need to have some level of comfort with steepness and or with um, objects that are not snow.
Obstacles.
Obstacles, yes. So trees that you have to go around, rocks, trees, little tops of trees. So
Okay.
some runs at the beginning of the year are black, but by the end of the year, they're probably closer to blue because they've covered up enough. But they're
Okay.
labeled as black because for the vast majority of the season, there's not enough snow to cover some of the terrain that could be super dangerous.
Got it.
Kirkwood, which is in California, in the beginning of the season, some of that stuff is steep as hell and it doesn't have a lot of cover. And so you need to
Okay.
be good going down it. They have a good snowy season. You get to go down a black and it's not really that challenging, but
Got it.
I went down a black. Double blacks are going to tend to be super steep more times than not, but they can be steep and rocky or steep and lots of trees, steep and
Okay.
trees. So it's a level of difficulty, but the level of difficulty can be steepness or um, obstacles.
And within that, there's also I've heard like there's like shapes, like diamonds or squares or something, or is that a thing, or is that just something that I've heard?
So you'll tend to have blacks tend to be diamonds. So you'll have
Okay.
a double. You tend to talk about blacks or double blacks, and double
Okay.
blacks, you would see two black diamonds, or you'll have
Okay.
I've seen some that are triple blacks. I think
Okay.
maybe one of them in my life that's triple.
Okay.
Um, the blues tend to be blue squares.
Okay. So they basically have both the square and the shape. It's just not extra information, but the same information.
Yeah, for the most part. I think the greens are green circles and blues are blue squares and blacks are black diamonds.
Got it.
So like also think about it, it's designed for colorblind. Like if it's a circle, you know it's
Um,
easy. If it's a square, you know it's not so bad. And if it's a diamond, you know, okay, I better know what the fuck I'm doing. If it's a double black,
got it.
you know, I really need to know what I'm doing.
So generally, on most mountains, double blacks are going to be the hardest.
The double blacks in Colorado are pretty bad. The
What's the
double
hardest ever you've done? Like any skiing, what is the hardest single? Like other than the one time where you were like basically just in fog or cloud.
um, that's hard. Like I so Arapahoe Basin in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
It's known for being super steep and super rocky. And I got there, and the first couple runs, I was like, what the hell are people talking about? This is so easy.
Okay.
And I went off, and I think it's one of the hardest runs I've ever done because it was medium coverage, which means that I could see the rocks.
Okay.
In order to get down, and I was by myself, I had to traverse a long way till I could find something where I felt safe going down. So I
Okay.
would say the hardest for me would be that. The funniest would be, and the hardest perhaps would be,
The funniest.
well, because Kirkwood, a mountain I know fairly well, and it was a run I had done before, like 3 times before. Something happened. It was fresher snow, and I ended up, literally, my skis ended up between 2 rocks.
Like
And
stuck.
And the only way out was straight down or having somebody lift me up. So I learned a really good product lesson. And so I give people, like I help coach people. And one of the things is, so design an app for crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I learned from that experience was when you're in crisis, you go to what you're most comfortable with. So
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, I'm stuck. I could try and go down. I can try and take my skis off, but I was smart enough to know I would probably hurt myself and or somebody else if I tried to do it myself. So
Right.
I tried calling, I Googled ski patrol. Well, whatever they've done, I kept getting a number that took me to Vail, which meant I was in California, and they kept sending me some call in Denver.
Okay.
So finally figured, I called the ski school where I take, like, hi, it's Wendy. How are you doing? Like, I'm stuck between 2 rocks. Where are you? I think I heard them talking about you on the ski patrol show. I'm like, yeah, that was me. So I start to describe where I am and where I came down from. It took 2 ski patrol guys to find me because I didn't have a whistle. I didn't have any way of letting them know. And I didn't know the mountain. And all these people passed me. And one guy stood and tried to help me. I'm like, you can't help. You're down there. And I'm not going down that. No.
Okay.
I want to die. If I want to die, I want to die like quickly. I don't want it to be that way. So one guy came past and found me and then told his buddy, who then came down. So
Okay.
I had one ski patrol guy, and then some snowboarder or some skier came down and he's like, can I help? And the ski patrol's like, yeah. Luckily, I wasn't too heavy. They literally had to put their arm, like, pulled up underneath me. So they put their arms up underneath my armpits, and they literally lifted me up out of between the 2 rocks.
That's crazy.
And then they're like, they wouldn't leave me until they saw me ski out.
And did you enjoy the rest of your ski down?
It was that I was alive and uninjured was enjoyable.
But I mean, after an experience like that, somebody might like not want to ski for a little bit.
Oh God, no! I got right back on. I was angry because it was fresh snow and I was missing the fresh snow because it was the rocks. Are you kidding me? I got right back up.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But then, like, weeks later, I ski by myself. So I get on the lift and then ended up next to a ski patrol guy. And I was like, I have to thank you on behalf of all a couple of weeks ago, your buddies, your colleagues, they saved me. He's like, oh yeah, I remember. Oh, great. I'm infamous.
I also remember one story you've told me in the past where maybe this happened this year earlier as well, but when you lost one of your skis, you went down and then you lost it again and then you went back up and you basically lost how many skis?
I lost 2 skis and I spent half of my last day 1 foot, one type of ski, 1 foot and the other. They were different lengths and different thicknesses. Yeah, it was at Alta, and normally COVID kind of screwed things up, but normally they find the skis at the end of the season.
Okay.
They never found my skis. I called them back, but they're Moment skis, which are custom made in Sparks, Nevada.
Okay.
My friend's like, no, just call them. They'll help you. I'm like, this is crazy, because I was getting ready to replace the entire ski set. I'm like, hi, I have a strange story for you. I bought my skis from you just a month ago, and I was just in Alta, and the ski set cost like $700 or $800. They sold me the replacements for $250 each.
That's great. I mean, they want to keep a customer, right?
They didn't do it to keep a customer. They did it because first of all, I thought it was nice. Then I think they were just amazed. I was a woman skiing by herself in such aggressive territory that she lost not one but two skis.
That's an awesome story. I mean, that really shows that a lot of people could probably do that if they had the willpower to do that.
I don't know. It's a passion more than a willpower.
Or, I mean, it's ultimately what I'm saying is it's something coming from your brain rather than like some being physically really amazing at doing something.
Yeah, no. I'm definitely not physically good at it. There are like I would like if I had started when I was a kid, I would be better than I am now. But I
Okay.
never would have been the one winning.
Okay.
I
Oh,
mean,
are there competitions? Are there races? Because if you've done races in triathlons, have you raced in skiing?
um, racing is a different kind of skiing than the kind that I enjoy. I think you would
Okay.
call what I enjoy more semi freestyle.
Okay.
So in skiing, there's downhill where they get this slick surface and they go down as fast as they can, and
Hmm.
it's much like much icier than what I
Okay.
like. But if you can do that, you can do most skiing.
Okay.
Then there's freestyle. So if you see people jumping off cliffs and into powder,
Hmm.
that's considered freestyle. I'm in the middle. I
Okay.
like to go. I like my skis to be in contact with the ground most of the time.
Okay.
But I like paddle. I like that soft, fluffy. I like going down in between trees. I like going in between rocks. I like being able to go down steep angles. But I don't want to go through like the chutes and stuff where they're hitting the flags and stuff. That's a totally different game.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff you see in like the Winter Olympics and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah.
And what is cross country skiing? Because that's a term I've heard.
They're totally different skis. And I tried it. Like I tried to cross country on my when during COVID when they shut down the mountain and they literally
Yeah.
wouldn't let me up anymore. I tried one day to do cross country. Oh my god, so exhausting. You're
Really?
going flat on skis, and so it's a whole body motion, and it's great exercise. And I would much rather climb up a hill and go down it.
So you're using like your poles to actually push yourself?
I haven't done it properly, and I don't have those proper skis. But so if you would, so like proportionally, imagine that my skis, like the bottom of my ski, is 4 inches wide. The
Okay.
the cross country ski is maybe 2 inches wide,
Oh,
maybe
wow.
like that might not be the exact measurement, but they're really very different types of skis.
So your contact surface is like way smaller.
Yeah, but you don't go down these like steep things when you're doing cross country. It tends to be flat, and it's
Okay.
so you're using your arms and your legs and it's your whole body kind of thing, and it's an exercise moving forward, and you're like there's a lot of this not kind of, but they're like you're going at angles against it, and you're
Okay.
moving your body to push against it, and so you would push to the right then push to the left. It was sort of imagine ice skating but on these long boards.
Got it.
Whereas skiing is much more you get there and your legs are together at the same. I'm trying to do it like this, but you can't quite see it.
No, I can see what you're doing.
Sloping and going in an S shape as opposed to kind of like you can do cross country and go straight a lot,
Okay.
so long as you have enough room to. It's not my thing.
I mean, the only reason I ask is it's a phrase that I've heard.
Cross country skiing, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And I would say there's probably more people who could do cross country than could do downhill,
Okay.
because cross country is, for me, mentally, I'm sure cross country skiers would be offended. But snowshoeing and cross country skiing to me are in the same genre.
Okay.
You're kind of going along a hiking path and you can go up a little, but you're not going to go a lot. Whereas uphill and downhill stuff is like the higher the angle, the more thrilling
Because you
the
like the speed.
uh-huh.
That's the reason. Are you into other fast things? I know it's totally unrelated to skiing, but like, for example, do you have like a sports car?
No, I have a Forester, so I can sleep in it, so I can go skiing.
Or like, have you ever learned how to ride a bike or something, like a motorbike?
I don't like motorbikes. Not my thing.
But you like going fast.
I don't like motorbikes. I mean, it's a good question, but I don't. They don't.
Or mountain biking?
Again, after watching James break his leg, I have no need to know.
But
I
I mean
mean,
that happened recently. So what about all the times before you knew about him breaking his leg?
I don't mind I don't mind road because I'm in control. The
Right.
idea of going down on these, I mean, because you're doing this, you're bouncing
Yeah,
up
yeah,
and
yeah,
down, you like
yeah,
you
yeah,
can
yeah,
hit a rock, you can flip over, you're likely to hurt. It just doesn't seem fun to me.
So when you were doing triathlons and you were on a bike, you would go downhill, steep downhills on asphalt,
On asphalt, on
right?
asphalt with tires that are meant to go down asphalt,
Yeah.
brakes full on.
Did
Like
you enjoy that though? Like that feeling of speed or no?
yes and no. I enjoyed it, but at points it was scary because you'd be going down with a lot of speed and then you have to take a turn. But I was terrible about going uphill. And I did like I would make up like people would pass me going uphill and I'd pass them going down.
So it's more than the speed. Like it's not just that you like the skiing for the speed. It's like yes, the speed, but the somehow the feeling of that fresh snow and like going through it is really fun.
You it's funny. I was like, it's how do you like imagine you've got to float down pillows on
Yeah,
a
that
powder
sounds like
day. It's just like going on pillows.
it sounds like a really fun feeling. I mean, I'm definitely going to try skiing at some time in my life. Like it's definitely one of those things that I'm like, yeah, I should try it. And I think now I have some advice from you in that just get a class. Like whenever you do that, go talk to an instructor and get a class.
It is so worth it. Now you're moving east, so it might not be quite so fun on the East Coast.
Oh,
It's
how come?
super, super icy.
Oh, it's much more icy.
Yeah. So in the middle of the country, so if you think Colorado, where I'm in Wyoming, Montana, it's going to tend to be fluffier. It's drier. The higher in the mountains, the drier it is.
Okay.
So as you go to the coasts, so East Coast or West Coast, it's going to be wetter. So that's why they talk about Sierra cement because it's
Oh, I've never even, that makes sense, but I've never thought about the fact that snow itself would be better near the coasts.
no, it's worse because it's wet and it free.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's, yeah.
So it's better in the middle because it's drier. The
Mm-hmm.
the air is drier. The
Yeah,
higher,
yeah,
the
yeah.
higher the
Of
elevation.
course.
So what happens is places like Vermont, Pittsburgh, or some places in Pennsylvania, it's going to ice over really, really quickly. They have
Mhm.
very few powder days. When we were talking about the skis, you
Yeah.
use fatter skis in the West. So the mountains of Colorado, Montana, even in California, use much wider skis because you can. Whereas the icier it is, the more important it is to have a sharp edge. So like
Okay.
that my skis have a much less of a sharp edge than if I were to go east and ski in Vermont because
Okay.
you need to be able to like carve into the ice and you
Yeah, no,
don't have
that makes sense.
the powder.
That absolutely makes sense. Have you skied in Europe?
I have not. It's on the list of things to do, but everyone I've talked to who skis in Europe, Europe's a very different experience. A couple
Okay.
things different. One is when you go off piste, so go off the groomed trails. So when you go skiing and it, like the blues and the greens, often they'll have like a machine that goes and makes sure that the path is nice and flat for you.
Okay.
Anything else is considered off piste, so you're kind of going off the general path.
Okay. Okay.
In the US, they patrol that. In Europe, they don't. It's
What?
at your own risk. Yeah. For the most part, in the US, you can find more steep stuff where there's actually patrolled. Um, Europe tends to be longer runs, but they're not super steep all the time.
So it's
There's some,
not something you're like feel like you're missing out on.
not really. I mean, there's a couple places I'd like to go, but I want to be better before I go to them because they're super, super steep.
And what
Like
about other places like North America, not Europe?
Japan is known for the fluffiest powder.
And you've not gone there?
I haven't gone there because it's also not that steep.
So I
Like
guess again, The US has like the ideal balance.
That's what everyone tells me. US and Canada, North America.
Oh,
Um,
have you gone to skiing in Canada?
Whistler's in Canada. I love
Okay.
that. There's a place called Revelstoke. Really like that. I haven't been up further north near Calgary where I need to go because that's supposed to be good. But Canada, obviously, it's cold. I also haven't been to Alaska yet.
I
But like,
mean, I'm guessing if you're skiing, it's cold.
well, California is actually for skiing is pretty warm.
Okay.
Like I moved out here to Wyoming. I had a friend here. I went to go get pizza for dinner for her, and I slipped in the snow. And I looked at the bottom of my boots. I'm like, yeah, I got to replace these things. I'd had them for almost 4 years.
Okay.
Didn't really matter because what happened is you live in California. On the weekends, you drive up to Tahoe.
Yeah.
I get out of the car, I put my ski boots on, I ski all day, get to the car, take my drive to some place where the sidewalks are fairly clean or it's warm and it's only been cold on the top of the mountain. Didn't really have to matter. Now I actually live a place where it's like I have to walk on the streets for it.
Oh, I see. Okay, I guess maybe that's probably why people like really like Tahoe and all of that because then you can drive there for the weekend and then drive back to like warmer places.
Yeah, and like I'm having problems with I'm getting new tires now, but I think part of why my snow tires probably didn't last as long as possible because it's cold, and then by the time I get home, the tires had warmed up, and
Yeah.
like there it was not uncommon for me to be in 20-degree night 17, and then by the time I got back to I had already back to the Bay Area, I had hit 70 degree for
Oh,
the
wow.
as far as the tires were concerned and the temperature on the road.
That's a huge difference for
Yeah.
sure. Um, are there any questions you think I should have asked and haven't asked?
Well, we've covered a lot of topics. They've all
Right?
been sports related.
I mean, mostly skiing and triathlon is what I think I've tried to keep it on. So I always do like to, I think this is about the time that they end up being, like about 70, 75 minutes mostly. And the question I always like to end with is, man, is there stuff that you wish I had asked about skiing or asked about triathlons and I didn't?
Not really. I could like you picked a topic I can obviously talk about forever.
Yeah, of course. That's the point of the conversation, right? Like at no point during this conversation did you feel like, oh man, I have to really know what I'm talking about because you know what you're talking about.
Yeah. No, you just got to hear about crazy trips and
Well, this was awesome. Thank you so much for doing this, Wendy.
sure, thank you. This is kind of fun. Now it'll be interesting to see what the edit of this is.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't heavily edit. Like unless there's literally like, oh, my doorbell rang and I need to go get food and I'll be back in 2 minutes. Like I generally try to keep it. When I first started doing it, I was like learning to edit as well. So the first episode is like just so badly edited. It's like just no, there's no space for people to like kind of just listen to the natural rhythm of the conversation. I edited out like all the pauses, and when you listen to it, it's like you can't breathe. You're like, oh my god, this is so fast. So, but now I've done about 10 or so episodes. So at this point, like the conversation can breathe, and you can really listen to what's happening.
So, where do you post these? How do you know if anyone else is listening to them?
I genuinely don't care if people are listening to them or not. I do post them on a public YouTube channel. I link it. I link the channel to you. Some of them have gotten up to maybe like 50 or so views. So at least someone out there is listening. I don't know who is listening, but that's not the reason I'm doing them. The reason I'm doing them is, first of all, to get to know my friends better, which I think is great. Uh, One of the ways to get to know someone better is to talk about something that they're really passionate about, and you can see a lot of their personality and then their like and their life stories coming out in that, like it did in this case as well. And the other reason is it'll be a really fun thing to look back to, right? Like maybe in 10, 15 years, if I ever open up this audio file again, it'll be like, wow, like I had such a wonderful conversation. Look at these really nice people I met. I learned so much about them. And finally, I get to learn. Like, I don't know about skiing. I don't know about so many different things that I talk to people about. So now I know more. So just it makes me better at conversation in the future.
Have you ever thought about transitioning this to sort of a semi-professional thing where you like maybe interview your engineering counterparts and find out why they build what they build and what they like about what they're building?
I've thought about it, but what I'm very specific about is I'm not going to tie it down just to certain topics or professions or anything like that. So for example, if I talk to somebody who's a peer and who's, let's say, in engineering and wants to talk about engineering, great. I have one episode where one person talked about one of their really successful side projects, which ended up becoming this thing that NVIDIA had to like give them cease and desists, and they ended up in this big legal thing, and they were just undergraduates. And then like Sony was coming in and pitching stuff to them, and they got embroiled in this big thing, and they had millions of users, and they didn't know what the hell they were doing. It's like this amazing Maverick story, and it's all about engineering. And great, awesome, let's talk about it. But the reason we talked about it was not because it's engineering, but it's because that they're really passionate about it.
So did they end up building a company out of it?
No, they didn't. But it's still a very successful open source project, which millions of people use. So it's something that they're really proud of. And um, I think it's something that they have very much principally decided they're not going to monetize. Yeah, so that's how I think about it. Like I'm actually, the direction I do want to take it is to talk to people. So far, I think pretty much everyone that I've talked to is somebody who I work with or who I'm friends with. If I have the chance to talk to people who are really interesting, but maybe I don't know as well, or who are not friends, or who are more strangers, I think that would be really cool.
So we have to go find you people who you don't know who are willing to do this.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe what that takes is just me having done this enough times that they're like, oh, you've done this enough times. Great. All right, maybe I'll do this with you. At one point, I have thought about just sort of reaching out to people who are kind of like experts or really are passionate about certain things and don't really care about having an audience, but just want to have like a conversation about the things that they're excited about. But I think I was also like with the job hunt and everything and like thinking about other stuff, I was like, I only started doing this like 3 months ago. So I was like, all right, I'll take my time. I want to make sure by the end of this year, I've done maybe 15 to 20 interviews. And then next year, I'll try to go for like doing in the whole year, doing maybe like 40 or 50 or something like that.
Well, at some point, you'll have to tell me how you turn these all into podcasts because I need to start doing this.
Oh, I'll tell you. For now, I'm using just like Google Meets. So this recording will just automatically go into my Google Drive, and then I convert it to an audio, and I just edit the audio file in Audacity. But um, once I'm gonna get like a little bit more like in the rhythm of doing it, I might actually start paying for some like podcast recording stuff.
Because the reason I was asking about it is I've realized that as I coach people, different people have different learning styles.
Yep.
And so there's lots of content, and I want to do a combination of a whole bunch of like little segments, like I can like $5 to get this bit of insight because you're only struggling with this part of the interview process.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to figure out how to do audio, video, and slide decks as well as written articles that cover different topics.
Oh, dude, totally. I can totally give you resources on that. I'll send you some links.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you once again. Thank you so much for doing this.
Sure.
Take care, and congratulations once again on the election.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
And congratulations to you because all that you guys have to go through has gotten much easier.
Oh yeah. No, I'm certainly looking forward to, even just as somebody in the industry, I'm looking forward to the fact that we can have people working in the industry not thinking about like, am I gonna have to go back? How is my visa gonna get processed and all that? So I'm really happy about that. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Bye.